Hello everyone, welcome to another Massimo webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're dialing in from. We will go through today the PMA-3000NE and DCD-3000NE. Roland is joining us from Nettetal. Hello, how are you doing,
Hey.
Roland?
Fantastic. So it's a very, very sunny morning and the weather will be really nice today.
Excellent. That's better than here. We're having thunderstorms and 34, 35 degrees, so very hot and humid. But anyway, that's besides the point. We're very excited to walk you through the PMA-3000NE and DCD-3000NE. So I'm handing it over right to you, Roland.
Thank you very much, Frederick. So yeah, welcome also from my side here from Nettetal in Germany. So today, as Frederick already said, so we will hear a bit about the 3000NE series. It was already announced in Japan at the HEOS, so at a trade show in Tokyo. So you may have seen some coverage in, for example, in LinkedIn about the PMA-3000NE. But we want to talk about the PMA-3000NE, which is an amplifier, which is the successor of the PMA-2500NE. And yeah, so if you count all the 2000 products from Denon, it is the 10th generation in this category. The PMA-3000NE is not only, let's say, the successor of the PMA-2500NE, which was EOL, I guess, 1 or 2 years ago, but it's also, let's say, the successor of the PMA-A110, which we, let's say, continued after the 110th anniversary of Denon, which was only planned for 1 year originally, but due to, let's say, all these supply shortages, we could not produce the PMA-2500NE any longer, and that's why we prolonged the PMA-A110 until now. So it will go EOL, and then the PMA-3000NE will, of course, replace also the PMA-A110. Of course, it has the Denon sound philosophy. So it's the vivid and spacious, powerful and accurate sound philosophy in the latest edition. What does it mean, the latest edition? I will come to it a bit later. But yeah, it's not only now Yamauchi-san, our sound master from Denon, which is doing the sound, because there will be a sound team of Denon, will be doing the, let's say, sound characteristics of Denon in the future. The DCD-3000NE, which is the matching Super Audio CD player, which will replace, let's say, the DCD-2500NE and, of course, the DCD-A110. So it's, let's say, one of the, it's the ideal, of course, source component to complement then the PMA-3000NE. And it supports SACD and CD playback, plus has a DAC input. And both components are made in our Shirakawa factory. And the same is, of course, true with the matching streaming source component, which was already launched, let's say, last year. So it's the DNP-2000NE. So it's a typical network streamer, but also a preamplifier. You know this component. It's a very, very high quality component. It was available in 3 colors, in black, premium silver, and the graphite silver, which is the color of the A110 series. And it's, of course, a HEOS built-in component. So everything with streaming from network. So this is the ideal partner for the PMA-3000NE if you want to have something streamed from the network. Today marks also the day, one very important day in our, let's say, approach to add more high-res services to HEOS, because in the past releases of HEOS, so we added Tidal High-Res, we added Tidal Connect, and today we added software is already online. We added Roon Ready, meaning the support of the proprietary RAAT protocol of Roon, so which allows streaming in highest quality from your Roon server to this component. And the DNP-2000NE is one of the first components to be Roon ready from Denon and Marantz. Of course, we also have a matching turntable, which is also called 3000NE. It's a very, very successful turntable. So it's a direct drive, you know, which also was launched last year. It's a very, very solid construction and has features an S-shaped tone arm. It's available in this, yeah, some call it ebony, I would call it so zebra wood finish, because it also resembles a bit the headphones, which are also available in this zebra wood. So, and of course we have cartridges for this, because this turntable does not come with cartridges. And the best matching cartridge is of course the DL103R for that, or the latest OEOS edition, if you're happy enough to live in a region where the OEOS edition is sold. Or you can, of course, also use any other cartridge, because the cartridge is, yeah, exchangeable. And the DL103 would be another example of a very, very good cartridge in there. But yeah, let's come back to the new components, meaning the PMA-3000 and the DCD-3000, and to Denon, because Denon, as I said it before, has over 110 years experience in audio development, and it's of course it was one of the first names in digital audio. This is our head sound master, you can say now. So this is Mr. Yamauchi-san, and Yamauchi-san was really defining a new way starting in 2015 as the sound master. He added vivid and spacious to the characteristics of a Denon sound, because before it was really powerful and accurate, or delicate, let's say it like this. So but then he comes in and added more liveliness, more spaciousness, and this to the typical sound character. But of course, sound is developing, and starting, I would say, end of last year, beginning of this year. So he got some help from new names like Watanabe-san, so who is now also supporting him in tuning our, let's say, Denon products. There's also, let's say, names like Yuki-san, which we also heard in the past, especially in the combination with AVRs, who are also supporting Yamauchi-san in tuning the products according to this Denon philosophy. All the components, let's say like this, so the DCD, the DNP, and the PMA-3000NE are, for Europe, these are flagship products for Denon. So these are produced, of course, in the Shirakawa Audio Works in Japan. This is where our development is taking place. It's a really big advantage to have the developers, to have the engineers at the same place as the factory is. So they can connect anytime we want to if they have a question, and the quality assurance is of course in-house there. So this is the best possible way to produce these nice little products. And this since almost 40 years when Shirakawa was inherited. But let's come to the characteristics of a PMA-3000. So the PMA-3000, so I have it here in premium silver, and where we are, of course, at one new thing. So because in Europe, it was so far only available in premium silver. So the predecessors, meaning the PMA-2500NE, but the PMA-3000NE will be available in premium silver and in black color. And it's of course based on the construction of the PMA-2500NE and the PMA-A110. So we learned a lot from these products, but we make them even better. So sound-wise, the target was to be better than the sound of a PMA-A110, meaning our anniversary model. So not only taking everything from the PMA-A110 and put it in a, let's say, premium silver, or in a black chassis, or in a black box, but really also improve from there. So, and let's come to these improvement points. This is of course a table, so you will get all these materials afterwards. So I don't want to read this table now. So you can look at it and take it as a reference, what was changed, or comparing it to the PMA-2500NE and the PMA-A110. So here are a bit more the key technologies which are improved. Of course, we also have this nice little advanced UHC MOS single push-pull circuit, ultra high current metal oxide semiconductor, of course, does it mean. So we have the same, let's say, transistors which can deliver up to 210 amperes of current, which is really, really high. This is, of course, peak current. So this is not permanent current. We have inherited the variable gain control. We improve the routing, so we minimize the signal paths again. And we have more selected audio parts in here. And one technology, because the PMA-3000NE is also inheriting, let's say, digital inputs and has a USB DAC. So we use this latest technology from Denon, this latest waveform recreation technology, which is called Ultra AL32. But yeah, I will explain all these improvements in a bit more detail. Let's start with the improved advanced ultra high current single push-pull technology. So, you know, single push-pull means we only have per channel, we only have 2 transistors. We don't have 4, we don't have 6, whatever. So as you may know, so for example, Marantz is using, let's say from model 50 onwards, it's dual push-pulls, so meaning they have 4 per channel. So, but the philosophy of Denon is clear, clean, and precise sound. And to reach this precise sound, so they even don't allow using 2 different, let's say, parts, 2 different transistors. This is why Denon say, so we only need 1, which is really, really powerful, as I said, more than 210 amperes. It can deliver, or more than 100 amperes in general for the UHC, to call it UHC, but in this case, it's 210, the peak current. We only need 1, but this needs to be powerful enough. Yeah, and as I said, so we improved it. So we improved the operation, so it's more stable due to very, very small improvements in the differential stage, so that it can handle the speakers. It has more control to the speakers than the circuit before. Variable gain control is actually one thing we also built into the PMA-A110, but yeah, it's an improvement, of course, over the PMA-2500NE. So you already know this circuit, so you know this maybe from all the new Denon and new Marantz product. It's an electronic volume control circuit, so meaning the volume knob, which is actually a potentiometer, a normal, but this is only, let's say, giving an impulse to a chip, which is the electronic volume control, which is much more precise than a classical analog potentiometer. This gives a very, very short signal path, actually. So the signal does not have to be routed via the front section anymore, where the volume control is, but since there's only an impulse given to the real volume control chip, which is in the picture in here, this is the volume control chip. So, and therefore you have very, very precise volume regulation and there's rather no differences for left and right channel. And also, so let's say like this, you have some volume which is also done and regulated, attenuated in the pre-amplifier stage, and then you have the flat amp, which has another step and which is improving the signal to noise ratio by over 16 dB. So as I already told you, so the signal does not need to pass the front element anymore, so therefore you have a shorter signal pathway. And yeah, A first timer again is that we implemented a separated, let's say, headphone amplifier. This has two effects. First, of course, we can improve the quality of the phone's output because you have a separate chip in there, and it's not, let's say, attenuating the power amps output anymore like it was with the PMA-2500NE. So you can connect higher quality headphones and you have a higher quality output with this. But it's also, let's say, makes it completely independent from the power amp. So meaning the power amp is not bothered by anything which you when connected to headphones. There are classical elements which are the same as the predecessor, meaning the PMA-2500NE or the PMA-A110, which is, of course, for example, this typical twin transformers in a leakage canceling arrangements. So you have 2 times the same transformers, which are arranged in an opposite direction. So you don't see this anymore with this model because the labels are now pointing to the same direction. In the former models, the labels were of one of these transformers were the other way around. So you could really see this, that this is built in the other way around. But yeah, please trust me, it's again in this model another way around, because then all this leakage flux is cancelled out by this opposite arrangements of the 2 transformers. We have channel separated power amplifier modules in here, which are all black, so meaning the extruded heat sinks, the aluminum heat sinks, so they are all painted in black, so anodized in black, let's say like this. And of course the transistors are sitting on copper plates to allow for very, very fast dissipation of heat, which is very important to, let's say, adjust the current of a transistor so that it is always playing in their best range, in their best linear range. And this reduces, of course, the THD, the total harmonic distortions. Yeah, so when we have another very, very important point, which is really a step up from the PMA-A110 and from the PMA-2500NE, which is the use of copper bus bars and copper plates instead of wires. So we call it nearly a non-wired signal path. You cannot say wireless connection. This would be a bit yeah, strange to say so. But it's really non-wired, because everything which contains really high the output signals for the speakers is no wire anymore. It's only copper bus bars and copper plates, so real thick copper plates, and which reduces, of course, the impedance and leads to a really improved sound quality. Another thing which you can, what we could do is to make the power amp board 2 layers. So it was 1 layer and now it's really 2 layers. So you can separate the plus and minus on these 2 layers. So which is very, very important, of course, and gives another improved sound quality for that. You see here also the thickness of these copper patterns, which is 140 micrometers now. There is usually for these kind of patterns, there is 35 micrometers. So I remember saying for the AVC A110, but we had 70 micrometers now. So for this PMA-3000NE, so we have 140 micrometers. So we are improving step by step. All the power amp signals are going to the speakers via such copper plates instead of wires. The improvement of the layers we could do due to the latest production processes and using, let's say, 6-layer boards or 4-layer boards instead of single layer or dual layer or 4-layer boards in the past. So especially in the digital domain, we are using now 6 layers, and we can separate, let's say, the ground from the important signal side. This is very important to reduce, of course, the interference between ground signals and the audio transporting signal paths. Another points, of course, which are leading to a very, very optimized construction. So we are using the same aluminum alloy feet, which we also use for the PMA-A110. We have all the RCA terminals now in mesh and brass, not only the CD and phono like it was with the 2500NE. And we have sound-tuned custom block capacitors. So in the power supply, as well as new sound parts in all of these sections. We even improved our phono section in the PMA-3000NE. Also do a further step if you partner it together, that will give you the best quality from a turntable. So it's, of course, it's the phono MC stage, and it's very, very a discrete phono amplifier. It's not only one chip solution, so everything is built completely discrete in this phono amplifier. But we are using also high quality parts in the power amplifier, as you can see here. And the two big transformers were only the transformers for the power amplifier, but there is one for the preamplifier, and there's one for the digital, and there is another one small for the control units. So all these, let's say, different signal units are completely separate from the power supply onwards. Some very minor changes, which leads to rather big improvements in, let's say, vibration resistance of the unit, such as removing two screws. So because we removed in the top cover the two middle screws, you can easily see this in here. And by removing these two middle screws, you can really stabilize the whole chassis. From the inner side, there are now damping pads, and these damp the, let's say, the top cover in a way that it doesn't rattle or whatever. So and because it's also not fixed in there, so it improves this vibration resistance. As I said before, we also have a digital section, and this digital board features a USB DAC and 3 optical inputs, 1 coaxial input, and the inputs are completely separated and completely isolated in the PMA. So we are using our latest technology of alpha processing, the Ultra AL32 processing, and we have a 4 DAC configuration in here, and the whole thing is featuring a discrete analog stage. So there's not only one op amplifier or something operational amplifier, but this is really a sound-tuned discrete analog stage. It's a 6-layer board, as I said it before. We are using ESS DA converters, which require, of course, a discrete current to voltage conversion afterwards. And this is done completely and fully in the discrete domain, like it was done with the PMA-A110 and, for example, also with the DCD-A110. By the way, the complete signal path in the digital domain is the same in the PMA and the DCD-3000NE, meaning in the DCD-3000NE, you get a signal, of course, from the CD drive or SACD drive when it goes into the signal complementation technology, which is AL32 processing, which is a DSP. When it goes to the DA converter, afterwards to the fully discrete current to voltage converter, then there is a small differential amplifier, and then it goes to the pre-amplifier section, and in the end there's the power amplifier section. But from the digital part, both models, PMA and DCD, are completely identical. So let's come now to the latest in the Ultra AL32 processing. I don't want to dig into details in here. The main thing is that all the signals, doesn't matter which signals are coming in, as they are PCM signals. So PCM signals are accepted, for example, up to 768 kilohertz. So all these signals are then upsampled to 1.5 megahertz, which is a lot actually, and to 32 bits. And in the end, this is really, really a lot of data. And please remember that the input of a DA converter is only able to handle 768 kilohertz, That's why we need 4 DA converters, because we need to separate for the channels the 1.5 megahertz into, let's say, 768 for the odd bits and 768 for the even bits. And in the end, so put after the digital analog conversion a differential amplifier into it, and then there is the left channel and the right channel. That's why we need 4 DA converters for this ultra AL32 processing. And another thing which is also improved and upgraded from the PMA-A110 is that we are using a very, very optimized master clock design, meaning we have 3 different oscillators, 2 for PCM, of course, 1 for all multiples of 44.1 kilohertz, 1 for all multiples of 48 kilohertz, and we are using 1 separate master clock oscillator for the DSD signals. So, and all 3 are separately buffered and then going, of course, to the DAC. So also the power supply, so each DAC is stabilized by its own low noise regulator power supply. And as I said before, we have a fully isolated USB section so that everything which might come in from your PC is kept out from the DA conversion process, and of course from the analog signals where it could, of course, possibly, potentially lead to any noise. Very important functionality which we had before is the autoplay functionality, so the signal sensing technology. So meaning the PMA-3000 is able, of course, to detect if there is a signal on an optical input or on a coaxial input, and then can automatically switch to this optical or coaxial input. And you can set, of course, the input it should monitor. So it could be rather one of the 3 opticals or the coaxial input. So yeah, what do we have? We have, of course, pre-in on the back side, on the rear panel. So we have plenty of inputs. So we have actually 3 inputs for, let's say, high level, 3 R3R inputs, for example, a CD player or other units. So we have a direct power amplifier input, so you can connect, for example, your AVR to it and use the PMA-3000 as the power amplifier for your main speakers or any other speakers. And we have a phono input, which I told you before. We have 1 other output, which is the recorder output. But we also feature digital inputs, also the typical B wiring outputs, which were typical, let's say, for the PMA-2500NE. We have here again, the PMA-A110 was only having 1 pair of speaker outputs. Here we have 2 pairs. There's no, let's say, AB. So it's always A plus B, but yeah, it's a B wiring connection, you can say, and delivering 160 watt at 4 ohms per channel. So for the front, the one thing which is new in here is the display, because it's an OLED display. Actually, it's the same OLED display we are also using for the PMA-A110, but for the 2500, we were using a classical dot matrix display in this case. Of course, an OLED is capable of displaying more information, such as, for example, the sampling rate. So the PMA also features the analog mode, so you can switch everything digital off to achieve even a cleaner sound, although, as I said, the digital section is completely shielded and it's also completely separate from everything else. So there's an overview, of course, of the key technologies, since you will get all this material, so you can look at it and you can make use of it in your daily sales, let's say it like this. So let's come shortly only to the DCD-3000NE, because as I said, so it will only be sold from January onwards in Europe. So there's also a few improvements. There's these ultra AL32 processing, actually completely the same as in the PMA-3000NE. There's a different analog circuit after the ultra AL32 processing for the DCD when it is used in the PMA. But we are using the same, let's say, DA converters in here. We have separated transformers for the digital and the analog part to avoid interference between both. We have the same aluminum feeds like the PMA-3000NE, and it's also available in black, this model, not only in premium silver anymore. So we exchanged sound relevant parts, we exchanged the bottom transformer plate, we exchanged the mecha top plate material. This all, of course, then leads to improved sound quality, improved against the DCD-A110 and the DCD-2500. Also here we are using now an OLED display in the front. So this also has the effect that you can not only, let's say, display information in English, but also can use multiple languages such as German, Chinese, or even Japanese to display in there, which was not possible with the old dot matrix display. Very important point is that we made the depth of both components the same by adjusting this, so there's more, it's called sense of unity when combining the products. But actually this is one nice thing. Of course, this is the outer thing which you see, the optical thing, but there was also an engineering idea behind this, because if you look at the inner things, so because these depth increase, of course, this allows for a single floor layout. In the old, so DCD-2500NE, we had a dual floor layout, so you have to connect the two floors by wires and so on. So now this leads to an improved audio signal path and reduced crosstalk, since we have everything on a single floor. We inherit also the direct mechanical ground construction, which is typical for Denon, and used the same feeds which we used also for the DCD-A110. We have a triple layer chassis in here with the same measurements, but as I said before, so we improved. Of course, some parts were improved by our sound masters. For example, so the transformer plate to reduce further the vibration, which is very important in a CD player. Also, the material was improved. Also, the mecha top plate, the thickness of the mecha top plate was a bit increased. As I said, we are using the same Ultra AL32 processing like in the PMA-3000, and there are a lot of electrical improvements like this new transformers in here, separated for the analog audio and the digital audio. We also improved the power supply, meaning we had a new audio power regulator in here, and the full stage after the DA conversion is done by fully discrete elements. There are a lot of sound parts used, which is of course decided which parts are used during the sound sessions with Yamauchi-san and Watanabe-san, so meaning the new sound master team in here. And as a last slide, I have some improvements which are, let's say, show the values, so which are improved by using all these measures we discussed before to even raise the signal to noise ratio, the dynamics, and even decrease the typical harmonic distortions, and regardless of the signals which are coming in. Yeah, thank you very much. I guess there are a lot of questions, or maybe not, because I told everything.
Yes, Roland, thank you very much for the thorough walkthrough. Yes, not too many questions, so you were very clear and precise. A couple of observations. So what speakers would you recommend to pair well with the PMA-3000NE?
This is quite a good question. So it's of course it's up to you. I would say so it's a rather universal amplifier. So you can really pair speakers which are in need of let's say power, because it delivers a lot of power. And let's say so sound-wise, you have to of course take into account that the Denon sound philosophy is always a very, very precise thing, and it's really brought to another, I would say, to another highlight with these models, because the precision and the sound stage of these two models, or better to say of a PMA, which I listened to, is reaching a new level. So So if you have, of course, if you have speakers which, let's say, are not going into that complete detail, so the PMA-3000 would be the perfect match of it. But this is not an exclusivity because it depends on your taste on everything. So if you really like it very, very detailed, then you can also pair speakers which have the characteristic to be there. But yeah, it's rather a political answer, but of course it depends on your taste, like always. What would you say, Frederick?
Well, we heard it at Shirakawa, right? So they were using,
right.
I believe, 700 series from Bowers and Wilkins, and that's a very revealing speaker. But there was no sense of harshness. It was very detailed, very transparent. And to put things in perspective, someone in Japan from FileWeb already has some impressions that he wrote down in a review. So let me paraphrase. So I was able to listen to the sound before the product was announced. So I would like to briefly write down some impressions. The overwhelming signal to noise ratio is the first impression. The high resolution and wide, clear spatial expression make it a truly vivid and spacious sound. But the realism of the soft sound is particularly striking. Until the moment the female vocals disappear, they continue to exist in the space with a definite outline. With classical music sources, this realism appears as a fortissimo strength. This is not a so-called strength, between quotes, of boosting the highs and lows or increasing the gain, but rather the impression that the sound comes out as is, without any attenuation. So to put it in perspective, it's like adding a spoonful of salt, that's what the sound masters do, pepper and salt, so to speak, adding a spoonful of salt to Mr. Yamauchi's vivid and spacious sound. The sound character, which is supple and clear, yet sharp, is detailed, is very similar to the compact network amplifier, the Denon Home amp, for example, announced earlier. And it made me feel the new possibilities of Denon. So by the way, then he continues, Watanabe-san and Fukuda-san, those are the two engineers who introduced the product, who appeared at the product announcement, are both young, around 30 years old. And this is the second model that they have been involved in developing. Furthermore, Watanabe-san said that he wanted to study sound quality and that he, between quotation marks, unofficially studied under Yamauchi-san. So from the perspective of the developers, it can be said that it's an amplifier that will lead to the next generation of Denon. I think that's pretty well written, and that pretty much sums up what we also experienced. Don't you think so?
Yeah, of course. So that's true, and this is you can really recognize even now. So the handwriting of these two young guys. The first product they were involved was the DNP, the DNP 2000. So also for this model there were quite similar impressions, I guess. So, and this also describes what we listened in Shirakawa. That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so here's another question in terms of external power amplifier input. I think he's referring to the power amp direct input. Can this input be automatically activated when turning on the Denon AVR?
No, there's no trigger input, so should be like this. So no, you need to switch, I guess, the PMA. You need to switch the PMA to the because I guess the thing is not only switching on, but switching to the correct input, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, that's right. The trigger could only switch it on, but could not, let's say, switch it to the correct input. But very good feedback.
Which colors did you say were available again?
Yeah, so it's all in premium silver and in black. So black, that's why black is beautiful. First time I see this nice little components in black. By the way, so in APEC they were also not available in black before, right?
No, they were, because we were using European SKUs as well, but it depends where. Taiwan, for example, is one of the exceptions that use the North American SKUs. I think only the DNP 2000 has an extra color, which is the graphite silver, to match the 110th, right?
Right.
Yes.
That's true.
Okay. There was a question if we could clarify again about the different clocks depending on the signal. So we have one clock for 44.1 and multiples, 48 kilohertz and multiples, and then a separate one for DSD.
That's right. So we have a separate one for DSD, which is actually quite new, quite nice. But this is then also buffered, which has a higher clock than the other two in the PMA. So the master clock is of course controlling the FPGA, which is doing the Ultra AL32, which is controlling the DAC, the USB-B DAC clock chip, and in the DCD, it's controlling the drive
Mechanism,
SACD, the mechanism, right? The mechanism. Then when we have, of course, the DAC and the AL32.
I think that's it. Thanks everyone for joining us, for making time. We're right on time. Stay tuned for more information to come, more invites to come. Check out the YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel there with all the recordings of the webinars. If you have any other offline questions, you know how to reach us, and we will get back to you right away. That's it for us. Thank you very much, and until next time.
Thank you very much for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.